Pablo, congratulations. What do you take from a preseason game like this? Or maybe what is the process through preseason, the different steps that you're actually looking at? Not that winning isn't important.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think there's I'd kind of break it down to um three or really two things. So tactically, we wanted to see how the front three defended against the back four. Because again, this is going to be our primary defending shape and not having our left back go all the way back and all the way forward. So with our wing backs. And so it was really about our wingbacks and our front three really connecting, reading cues to get pressure on the ball. And a couple days ago in training, it didn't look great, and so we sat together as a group, kind of talked it over. And so that was what I wanted to look for tactically in this game was really the connection with the front three, the pivots, and the wingbacks. And I thought they did a really, really good job. And then obviously the way we, the build phase and the spaces that we want to occupy in the vertical channels. That was the part on offense that we wanted to look. So the two areas that we haven't even touched upon yet were the two boxes. And so I think if you just talk about all the phases of the game, then you can't really focus on what's important. So those were the two phases tactically. The other part was winning duels and competing the right way. And so when you get the right mentality, and I think those two phases of the game were executed really well, then you put yourself in a position to win the game. But so those are the two focus areas tactically, and then the mentality piece has to be. And you saw the guys just busting their tails for one another. The communication, the way they competed, I thought was really, really well, really good. So, next game we'll focus on two other areas that we want to continue that we'll work on in the next few days that we want to highlight, in the Bromby game. So I think every game affords you the opportunity to really hyper focus on the areas that you've been working on. And then obviously, the competing stuff and the mentality has to be there regardless of if we're working on it or not. And so again, just really pleased with after 8 days with a relatively new group, and youngers getting sprinkled in there with Wangio and Omar, to be able to compete the way the guys did. It was a really good performance.
What about on individual player level? That's the team level. How do you gauge progress for, the new guys, Griffin Dillon, and some of the younger players that you're bringing in versus, a veteran like Luna? How do you gauge their progress, and what do you obviously got to expect different things from different players.
Yeah, no, I think what we're looking at, Brent, is what does it look like? Because again, for me, the MLS Next to MLS is you're skipping a couple levels, if not a few levels. It is a huge jump. And so I think the expectation always starts at zero. And I think it's more so to protect the player. Like Griffin has been excellent when he's come up in the past, and trained with us. But now it's a different game because the psychology is not that I'm a Monarchs player, just temporarily with the first team because there's really no expectations that anyone else has for him. But now when you're a first team player, that whole dynamic changes, right? And so I think for me, it's really about how does he continue to integrate into the team and how does the speed of this level. And when I say speed, I'm not talking about physical speed. I'm talking about processing speed, positioning, little nuances in the middle midfield, which is again some of the tougher positions to play when you're going up a level is in the middle of midfield because the game's 360 degrees around you. You have to have eyes in the back of your head, and people are closing you down from different angles. And so I think with each of the young guys that are coming up, it's more about just seeing their progress and not having any expectations that they need to be the guy. And I think that way we can bring them along in a way that is commiserate to where they're at and how they're experiencing the game. And so, I think Noel did that last year. He came up from the Monarchs. And it took him, he broke in probably, I don't know, 10, 12 games into the season, but once he got the hang of it, he was flying. And so those are some of the things. And then, Omar and Wangio too. Like this is their first real, they're up against a real professional team who've been, and they're in midseason form and they're big guys um, and with a ton of experience. So I think with all the youngers that stepped in today, it's really about just having patience with them, helping them along, and when they're ready, they'll get another crack.
And the new system, a lot of people, I think, well, myself included, excited for three in the back. Was that a move for a defensive reasons or offensive reasons? What was the mindset was it a roster decision? You just have enough players, you need to play differently.
No, I think again, I think like our build, and it's confusing at times because sometimes we use Rafa in the deeper build, so it looks like almost four in the back with Rafa. But the last couple of years, we've attacked in a 3-2-4-1, and then the difference being is oftentimes we pinned our wing backs, and so we'd use a winger on our right side, and we'd ask Alex or Sam to get to get to the highest line in the attack, and so that it was an asymmetrical setup from a 4-2-3-1, and that's the shape that we defended in, and so to make it a bit more symmetrical. And again, I think the only reason you want to be asymmetrical, and we started this when Andres Gomez was around, was because we wanted to build in a three, um, but defend in a four, so our star winger wouldn't have to drop all the way back and defend, right? And so that's the reason behind that. And so I think what this shape does is just provide a little bit more balance. It doesn't put such a stress on a outside back turning into wing back and then reverting back to an outside back. Um, and there's still little areas that we have to touch up on, in particular in the second half and sometimes in the first half. Our right side center back was too wide at times in the build where we're killing our own passing lanes and making it really difficult to find exits out of that position. So those are things that we'll work on tomorrow. But I think overall, it's just more clear when you defend the shape, attack in a shape, and defend in the same shape. It just the transfer of information to the players is simpler, more clear. And so hopefully we can gain 2 or 3% more from each player because it's not such a drastic change for a couple of positions.
Lastly, from me, just curious with the new system, new players, and you're probably working on getting more players into the roster before the end of the window. Is
Mhm.
this we're going to be ready game one, or is it a process of maybe, it's going to build through the new year, through the new season, a few games?
I mean,
What do you expect? What are your expectations, I
yeah,
guess?
my expectation is that we'll be ready, game one. That's the way I prepare. I don't, that's why we're putting in a lot of work now, where even if we have a couple other players joining the group, it'll be really specific work with those guys to get to the crux of what we're trying to do on both sides of the ball. And the anticipation is that these players will have a bit of experience in the game, so that it won't. My guess is it wouldn't take long for them to adapt quickly. But I think the most important thing is that this is the majority of the team that we have, and it's really important for them to get dialed in, get reps, feel comfortable in the shape, so that when new players come along, it won't be changing everything for anyone. It'll be sitting down with this player and just going through some of the video stuff and then working it on the field. So I feel like, our goal and what we talked about is, we're working back from Vancouver to today, and we're with the amount of minutes the players are getting, working with our performance staff. So the expectation is that we'll be ready to go game one.